C40's cities. That's the summit of mayors that's taking place in Johannesburg at the moment, and we've got mayors coming from all over the world, in fact, and one of them is from a city in the States called Portland in Oregon. And some of you may know the city for its basketball team, but I'm told it's got a decent soccer team, or football if you watch the game like me. But to tell us a little bit more about some of the challenges the city faces, and climate change and other environmental issues, is the Mayor, Charlie Hales, who joins me now. Mayor, thank you very much for joining us. And you're new to your job as Mayor, but not to governing in city terms.
That's right. I served on our city council. We have an unusual form, a very small council, and each council member actually manages departments. I served on the council from 1993 to 2002 and launched some of the initiatives that are now Portland hallmarks. The streetcar system that we have in Portland is very involved in the tree planting effort. Was on the council when we approved our original climate plan. So I was there at the foundation, then away in the private sector for 10 years, and now am back in government as the mayor.
So what's your experience then of C40 cities being part of this network?
It's very helpful to us, and it's also humbling because we're a smaller city than most of the member cities, and Portland was invited to participate really as a gesture to how we have been a pioneer and a laboratory within the United States. We've been ahead of the curve on these issues in the United States, and we take that seriously and we work hard to keep pushing that edge. But we've had urban growth boundaries in Oregon now for 40 years. We've had a light rail system since the mid-1980s. So we've been early adopters of some of the ideas that are now in wider circulation through the C40 network and around the US as well.
Have you been able to share those ideas within the C40?
Oh yes, very much, and it's been exciting to me, particularly because of the role of the tram project, the Portland streetcar, as a model to other cities, much as the bus rapid transit system in Curitiba has been a model for that form of transit. We built the first modern streetcar line in the United States, opening it in 2001. Not an unusual thing in Europe or Asia, but it was very much an unusual thing for the United States, where we really discarded that mode of transport. We opened this initial phase of the streetcar, and it led to an explosion of transit-oriented development in the city that's been very positive for us economically and socially, but also is a huge success in terms of our carbon footprint. We have tens of thousands of people living a true low-carbon lifestyle where they walk for most trips and take the streetcar for most others and hardly ever use their cars. And that result has been noticed by the rest of the country. So there are now a dozen or more cities in the United States building streetcar projects at this moment directly modeled on the Portland streetcar.
What would you say is the most valuable thing that you've gotten out of C40s in the time that you've...
I think the rigorous approach to data and the fact that Mayor Bloomberg emphasizes this all the time. Of course, you can't manage it if you can't measure it, and that approach by both the staff and the other mayors to making sure that we really have solid data, not just political rhetoric, to back up the work that we're all doing. That's very helpful. And then a lot of these best practices and everything from waste to energy to some of the new topics like commercial building ratings are very stimulating to us as a city that wants to innovate. We're around some very impressive cities that have been innovating in ways that we haven't tried yet, and that cross-pollination is good for us on the receiving end as well.
Have you had an opportunity to think about maybe what you can share with Johannesburg, or what you can learn from Johannesburg in the few days that you've been here?
Well, I'm impressed with what Johannesburg is doing, and I think Mayor Tau's emphasis on the social impact, that we have to lift up those who've been left behind economically with what we're doing, even while we're attending to the climate. I think he's totally right about that, and all of us have income disparities in our communities, maybe not as severe in some as in others, but I think that needs to be part of our message, that this is about economic uplift for those who've been left behind, as well as ecological improvement and saving the planet. Who can argue if we can accomplish all those objectives at once?
I know that your city has a number of rivers that sort of run through it and around it. Does that play a part in your climate story?
Oh, very much. We're not as vulnerable to flooding as some other cities are, but we're very conscious of our setting in the natural world. Portland is at the confluence of two major rivers, and there are other minor ones as well. And then there's a beautiful mountain covered with snow off in the distance, Mount Hood. It's an icon of our city. And Portlanders are outdoors people. We want to be out biking or hiking or canoeing or fishing or otherwise enjoying the outdoors. So that connection with the natural world really reinforces our community understanding of climate change and of the need to be resolute and effective in being better stewards of the planet.
There's this thing about cities being part of a network, but you're looking at issues and challenges that national governments and, in your country, federal states are grappling with. What is it about cities and the energy between cities that seems to be working?
You know, there's a relentless bent towards the practical at the city level. We have to pick up the garbage, pave the streets, mow the grass in the parks. We do real stuff every day. And I think that pragmatism inclines us towards solutions that we can actually put into practice sooner rather than later. I think all of us have reasons to perhaps be frustrated at times with our national governments. Certainly the case in the U.S. Our federal Congress is almost dysfunctional in their paralysis at the moment, and yet under President Obama we have federal agencies that are working in close partnership with cities in a very effective way. Our environmental agency, the Environmental Protection Administration, our housing agency, and our transportation agency at the federal level actually all work together on what they call a Livable Communities Initiative, a federal Livable Communities Initiative that's a creation of the Obama administration and was specifically designed to partner well with what we do in cities where those administrative boundaries don't matter very much. What matters is, how's life in the neighborhood? Can you live in an affordable home, catch a bus or a light rail train to a job, send your kid to a good public school, and have a park that's green in your neighborhood? Those things come together in that federal agenda, and we make them come together on the ground.
All right, so very practical. And I'm just wondering now, from a human aspect maybe, how valuable is it for you to be able to sit down with other mayors and just have a conversation with another mayor? You know, we get the whole sort of policy and papers that move within a kind of network like this, but to be able to chat to other mayors within this network.
Oh, it's very valuable. In fact, I was just having a couple of conversations out here between sessions with a couple of other mayors, comparing notes on issues and how we're handling them, and intending to get back together and talk more after the conference, because I think we all need encouragement, not just from our citizens, but also from our peers, that you can do this. You can build that bus rapid transit and people will ride it. Even though your critics are now saying no one will ride it, trust me, we built one, they will ride it. No, you really can capture your methane gas from your landfill, generate electricity, and cut the cost for your citizens. We did it, and we're doing it here in Johannesburg. Those peer-to-peer encouragements for us as people, as mayors, very helpful, because no good deed goes unpunished. When you make change, there are always those who will argue and grumble until the change is obviously helpful, and then they go away. But in that difficult interim between the idea and the proof, it's nice to have your peers saying, no, it'll be okay, you're going to get there.
And that's a good point to leave this conversation. Thank you very much indeed for sharing the experiences of Portland, and for visiting. Thank you very much indeed for reaching our shores.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. It's a privilege to be around a lot of smart people with the right values that are making things happen. So I'm honored to be a member of this really important society here that C40 has created.